Hello guys, welcome to the YouTube Business Investment channel. Today we have the great pleasure to introduce you Mr. Gabriel Zanko. Gabriel is an investment banker and a startup advisor. During these interviews, you're going to hear a lot about fundraising and more specifically in the blockchain ecosystem. So stay tuned, but before these interviews, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel because a lot of more interviews and investor events gonna come up. See you right after this. So welcome guys to the Business Channel Investment. Today we are welcoming Gabriel Zanko, who is from South America. And Gabriel Zanko is very interesting guys because he worked a lot for blockchain companies, an advisor, an investor, and he has developed a great experience in this ecosystem, but not only that, and not limited, of course. And he can explain what he did and what he can offer in terms of information and advisors to the investor and startup founders. So, hi, Gabriel. How are you?
Hey, thank you for the invite, man. All good, all good. In Colombia.
Thank you. Gabriel, would you mind, please, for the community and investor club to introduce yourself first in who you are and what you were coming from?
Yeah, sure. So basically, in a nutshell, right now I help with my company, Mobile Your Life, to advise tech companies mostly in obviously blockchain space, fintech, renewable energy, cannabis, and much more. And basically, our main task is to help the companies get funded. So we raise capital for all these companies in several ways, several angles, whether it's direct investment from investors, debt financing angles, syndicates, all that is possible to help these companies get funded. And I've been doing that the last 3 years almost, and it's been a wild ride. Yeah, it's been fun.
Okay, so basically, how much is it? Maybe interesting to know how much do you help companies startup to raise in the, let's say, blockchain ecosystem first?
Yeah, so I started with the blockchain ecosystem back in 2017, but right when the moment with the market was going up like crazy, and
Sure, yeah.
there was a huge hype at that moment. So I remember one of my first companies or clients I helped was a company in Germany called Naga, which is a company, very interesting company. They are a public listed company in Frankfurt, Germany, and they create a new entity to raise back then the ICO. So it was great. The ICO went great, and I joined at last minute. But we managed to raise like $500,000 in 3 days. So it was quite nice. So
Yes.
that gave me confidence, and then from there I started doing the same with other companies.
Yes.
The other one, which was very interesting for me, was Crypterion in the UK. Very interesting team. Back then, they were doing the same. And I joined with more time. But at the end, I remember it was January 2018. And back then, we also managed to raise, a few $1,000,000, around 10, 12. And from there, I saw that the system works, that I was good, connecting investors, capital to these companies. And it was like a whole new world for me opening, because I was like huge, very interested in that. But suddenly after that came the crypto winter, like the whole 2018 and 19. So it was a little bit hard to raise capital after that. But I managed to survive in a good way, and continue working, not only blockchain, but also fintech, AI. So my main task was, help them raise capital, but also like let me help you open the market in Latin America, for example, or to these innovative companies. No? So it's been interesting. More recently, I also got approached by other stuff, more traditional or completely different lines, like renewable energy, as I was mentioned to you, connectivity. So the good thing, after 3 years, I managed to build an interesting network, of advisors, of investors, of funds. And, we're all trying to do the same, trying to help these companies, trying to grow them, right? So, yeah, that's like in a nutshell, yeah.
So basically, you develop a really great experience in terms of advisory for the first blockchain ecosystem to
Yeah.
raise funds, right? But in fact, you realize that you could implement for the other system, for the other industries. And if I understand, if I'm wrong, you not only on the in the connection with investor, you are really apparently involved in the marketing part and maybe other stuff. Maybe you can develop this for us, but your kind of role, what kind of scope and perimeter of activities you can do for a startup and stuff.
Yeah, so basically at the beginning when I started, it was like, yeah, my main task is raising capital, but then I realized when I talk to these clients, I always want to get involved for the long term. So if all the work is successful, I obviously gain shares in the company equity. So my main task is not only getting the capital, but also help them to get clients or partnerships or open a market, because at the end I'm kind of like part of the company. So it's like, let me help you grow, no? And more recently, I also realized that, as I was telling you before, before this pandemic, is like, let me also invest myself in these companies before raising capital, because that gives me skin in the game to show to other investors, like, I'm currently in this project or in this, company. Uh, so, and that's kind of like my idea from now on, to also invest more as an individual, getting more in the waters, when raising the capital. And uh, and so, yeah, just right now with the global pandemic, everything is on hold a little bit, so I'm taking it easy, but it's still with a lot of work, with a lot of companies, trying to help them and find creative ways to be.
Mhm.
You realize that, okay, maybe the investors won't invest right now, but then we have to find, debt financing options, or whatever they might need. So it's been very interesting the last, how you say, the last few weeks.
Okay, okay. This is an interesting part. By the way, your image is frozen. Is frozen. I'm hearing you perfectly well, but
Yeah,
for
let me
some
see.
reason the image is frozen. So
Oh,
maybe you can
sorry.
do something on this. But anyway,
Yes.
the thing is, what I like is your experience through the winter time, and how you transform your business. And the fact is, I have from the founder perspective and advisor perspective, there's something I like what you just implemented. You just said to the community, I'm going to invest first to show off to the investors that this project is really good. You
Yeah,
create
yeah.
traction and credibility and authority upfront to give the right condition for the project to move forward. And on top of that, I think you also implement a kind of authority inside the project, and you can give all your experience and expertise to avoid any problem within the organization and help them better. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think when you are too much external, if you do not prove that you believe in the project and put the money, it's something quite different. So so this is a part I like is when you're capable to invest. And I think it's not a question to put maybe 1 million, is to put the money to prove and
Yeah.
to push the company to move forward. Maybe you can I'm really curious to know what you think about the ICO,
Yeah.
initial action offering, because you went through it as I did.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
what do you think about the STO2? It's very interesting to get your viewpoint analysis through your hands-on experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, when I realized that this ICO movement or vehicle back in 2017, I was fascinated by the speed, of raising the capital, by immediately having liquidity, and also, getting a huge return very fast. That was like very tempting, very fascinating. But at the end, I realized it was not going to last, because it was a bubble. So many projects raise so much capital. Most of them, they weren't able to build the product, or they disappear, or trading the token. It was purely speculation. But at the end, you see like a glimpse of what's going to come. That was definitely the future. Like, these assets, digital tokens, trading in exchanges, raising capital faster than the traditional equity market. So I was like, yeah, this is very interesting. This is going to succeed. But at the end, it was the very early days, very nascent days. So right now, obviously, STO provides more, safe space for the investors, but it's super nascent right now. There's no liquidity for the STO market, but that will happen down the line for sure, and it will provide more security to the companies and to investors. But if you ask me, I don't know. Sometimes I think when I see utility tokens and security tokens, you definitely love the dynamics of the utility tokens, how they get listed, how they trade. But at the end, it's very short term. It's very short term. It's just purely for traders, just to speculate, and you don't want that for a project, for a company. You want a stable project, a stable coin. So, but at the end, we're all experimenting in this space. So we'll have much to see down the line to see how it evolves for sure.
Okay, so you're more for this, I may say, equity, and that it could be equity in a, I might say, normal, standard, or security token offering. That makes sense.
Yeah. And also, you see, investors would like liquidity, right? So equity markets or investing in a fund takes longer. So STO could provide some liquidity or exit down the line for the investor, which is interesting. But again, I see it very, very nascent in the point that still equity, just investing in the company might get more sense right now. But I guess we'll have to give it a few more years to see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay. But what I like in your profile is you, as you just said at the beginning of the interview, you went through the winter time.
Yeah.
You went through a lot of difficulties within the blockchain startup team. What would be the advice at the first sight you could give to the founders economy, let's say, or even the investor who want to say, hey, even if it's a COVID, in a crisis situation, how is it the right time to invest first of all in a startup today? And if yes, what kind of startup, or how I could, what's the first thing I should do before doing anything, to analyze, to detect a good startup?
Wow, yeah, that's a good question. I think right now with these pandemic times, in one hand, I think it's a time to be calm, to remain calm, and to evaluate everything more carefully. But on the other hand, I think if you are able to invest, I think it's always a good time to invest, in the sense of, if you happen to find a very interesting startup, innovative solution, interesting founders that make sense, you should join, right? It's no sense to wait. It's like waiting for the right moment and then jumping directly straight. So I think right now the seed stage startup market is quite uh, because I mean, you see, they have to grow, they have to raise several rounds to get the solution going. But on the other hand, there's so much innovation happening that I think, yes, it's a perfect timing to invest right now, if you have the possibility, because companies are, uh, in a financial perspective, they are reducing the valuations. It's like you're getting with discount on all these companies, and you're helping innovate in this crisis. So I think yes, I would say yes, despite the craziness all these months, right? But on the other hand, you have to be more careful, more cautious, trying to figure out what are the trends after this COVID. That would be key. So you got energy, connectivity, water. Obviously, blockchain will be key, but it's not only that. It's not only the tokenize the assets. I think there's still a long way for that. But you have so many issues right now, especially in emerging markets, and with this situation, that I think, yeah, this is perfect time, I would say, especially now.
Okay, so in fact, you, as a Warren Buffett said, when you invest, you have to invest in the right time, and crisis is the right time. And
Uh-huh.
I have different question again, because what the subject is getting richer in what by the time we're moving forward. Um, would be my first big question for you is, for an investor standpoint, in such a crisis context, you are
a savvy entrepreneur and advisor, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm a beginner and say, okay, I know you have a secret sauce, right, and it's yours, but for a beginner, what would be the 4 or 5 really interesting points I should take in account when I'm trying to select a company? When I see a startup, when I say I see a bunch, even if I see a bunch, is I see a bunch, but I found no matter a startup, interesting startup in an accelerator, how I, what what the first process I should do to analyze it on my own without any support, just to train myself first and get more insight and experience.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you have to initially you have to obviously identify a key problem that we're facing right now, and then from there try to build a unique proposition or solution for that problem, because you always obviously will find competitors, and if you have competitors, in a way that's a good thing because it means there is a market for it. But on the other hand, as Peter Thiel says, in the Zero to One book, that you have to build very unique solution to in order not necessarily to build a monopoly, but to be able to stand out on the crowd, right? Because it's so easy to build a similar solution, and it's from the investor perspective, it's more difficult to join, right? So I would say first identify the problem, obviously, then find a key solution to that that could be sustainable over the years, even if you have competition, and from there build an interesting team around that, right? And see some traction. And after that is, should be okay. It's just like getting a skin in the game, starting the solution, and trying to scale it, right? Because the investor will try to always see how much it can scale the solution. Or if you want to build like let's say a normal business, solid business, but it won't be these returns that investors expect in technology, right? Because there are so many business right now that many shouldn't be right around, but they are because they are satisfying a need, but not necessarily is the best one. So yeah, kind of like that.
Okay. What do you think about the maturity of the team? Can
The what?
you develop a little bit about this? Because most of the investor I know could be VCs and family office and so on. They believe in what you said, but I really do kind of, I don't have to say test, but they want to know the guys, because at the
Right.
end of the days, they're gonna pivot. They're gonna have a
Mm-hmm.
problem and so on. I want to make sure that the guys they have the right emotional intelligence and maturity. They know how to develop and execute. What's your experience first? Because you are already investing in startup, and what do you think about that and the maturity level of the guys? What's your experience and what do you think about that?
Yeah, I like when the founders, and I guess everyone tells the same, but I like when the founders has some track before creating some companies and doing some, not necessarily exits, but create different business. They had success. So I pay attention to that more than the background of the person, like whether it's academic or not. But if they build business before, that is a good sign. And also if they are able to talk to people, to be, how you say, influential to people, to investors, plus having the technical background. So that's key. And I guess you sense that in the first few meetings. It's also a little bit of intuition, like the vibe that you get from the founders and from the team. Not necessarily it's only that, but that gives you like also a sign that, okay, this should be in a good path, right? Because the startup ecosystem is so hard that you need to be so resilient in your mind, plus emotional intelligent, but also having created before teams, right? So even if they failed, but they tried, and they have like 2, 3 companies under their belt, so that gives you more perspective of what they can achieve, and and also that they are also paying attention not only to their industry, but in a more global way, the whole, let's say, they know about everything a little bit and they understand the dynamics. So that's interesting for an investor to see the founder is aware of that, no? So I guess a lot of intuition comes to play at the end.
Great.
Yeah.
It's the thing. There is always something, in terms of when the startup are approaching, they want to work with you for some reason because they know you, because they heard about you. How do you do are you using the same criteria to say yes, or what kind of advice I might say? Maybe I'm not asking the right question, but what kind of advice you're going to tell them, or the first approach you're going to have with them?
You mean with the founders of the company
Yeah,
or
the founders, yeah.
so more recently, I've been approached by companies that are referred for with some partners or friend of mine. So that gives me confidence because I've been working before with these people, and if they bring a company, let's say, already trusting in a good way on the deal, then I see if it had some sense in the market, the problem, the solution, and especially the exit way, the roadmap. What would be? Would you like to get acquired or an IPO or an STO, or it depends. And if they have the clear path to go, and they have some tracking already, potential LOIs from clients or developments, they're just needed to secure the capital. That gives you a lot of confidence, because at the end, when you how you say, uh, they are they got a good solution, a good project, good team. Getting the capital shouldn't be the most difficult part. So that gives you confidence to see, okay, let's jump in this solution. Pretty much.
Great, thank you. I'm just thinking about something else in detail about the what you just said is, what if a company is knocking at your doors with a great team and so on, but they don't have any MVP? They have a great idea and so on, but they don't have the capital because the MVP could be really complex to execute or to deploy because of AI, a mix of AI. It's kind of technical synergy, right? What would you be interested, or for you, the not to get a MVP or a prototype is a problem? What do you think about this specific use case?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let's say, for example, when they don't have an MVP or product ready, I understand that because you happen to be in that phase. But you have to see, again, you have to see the team, the founders or the founder, if they had some previous tracking of building something. And if not, you have to see the previous experience of the person as an individual in other areas. That will give you confidence to say, okay, this makes sense. Let's move on and let's try to build it right. But but if they don't have the MVP and they don't have previous experience, they just had an idea. It would be very difficult to jump in because you might find the same idea with already an MVP in other part, right? So why you should fund this one? So I guess the difference there would be pretty much the person right behind it. He's a very serious guy who has done it before and is very smart and is seen in a complex, different way. Yeah, why not? But it should be. That's a good question because I see a gap right now in that specific niche, and I have seen some funds creating these funds for pre-seed, uh, you know, uh, idea. So that's a gap right now because not even angels, they don't want anymore to invest in this type of ideas, right? They just want to see some revenues tracking, right? So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can we now just shift in numbers, because we already talking about money, and I'm just really interested by the number in terms of projections. I went over a lot of text and a lot of business plan and so on with the financial projection, and I'm sure you did the same. Um, when you want a pre-seed or seed, when people are asking, I want $2 million, I want $3 million, I want $4 million, and the MVP is already almost here or go to market, what do you think about that? In another way, what's the best amount of money to request when you have already your MVP, your team, and you are close to go to market, and you need, let's say, 6 months or 1 year to get close to market? How can you justify the right amount of money at the first step, and say after you're going to do your series? Do you have any, I might say, experience in calculation of that, or What do you
Yeah,
think? Because it's a kind of tricky, I know that, but it's part of it. It's part of the numbers.
yeah, yeah. It is tricky because it depends the industry you're tackling. Let's say if it's energy or connectivity or blockchain. But what I have seen roughly is that you see numbers from as low as 300K US dollar up to 2 million. So in that range, you see if you have already an MVP and you raise, let's say, 500,000, 1 million, you could easily deploy the solution and start some revenue, some tracking for the first year. But after that, you will have to raise a new round of around 10, round A. So it's very similar to all companies. But I guess as low as 300K up to 1 million, that should give you enough to survive. Not only to survive, but to start um, working on the solution.
So,
Yeah.
you would be better in I might say as an investor, you would prefer to say, guys, 500,000 maximum, let's say, just an average, because I want to you prove me that you can do it, and after we can
Yeah,
add another one and step by step, and putting
exactly. But again, it depends the market and it depends the industry, because some industries, for example, in the energy space, if you raise 1 million, it could provide you tens of millions of dollars in revenue the first year. So after that, maybe you don't need to raise anymore in a few years, right? So it's like you could raise an additional. I mean, let's say in the renewable energy, you could raise $1 million. That could provide you ten of millions of dollars of revenue per year, and the second round would be $20 million. So you jump from 1 to 20, but it's because you had already uh, interesting clients to develop the solution. So in that particular case, in technology, it would be smaller, as you say, and you have to raise, seed, round A, round B, round C, and it'll take you more time. Yes.
Thank you. Another point, still numbers.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
This time it's part of all the pre-value, post-value, pre-earning, and I mean, when you do your capitalization tab, when the funders is about to raise, sometimes can for him difficult to do the calculation for the capitalization tab for the shares and so on, and how much in exchange of, let's say, 1 million, $2 million, how much shares in terms of percentage, with an impact obviously on the dilution for the rest of the team, of the team founders. Sometimes it's a problem for them to say how much shares I'm going to give. What's your experience about that, and what would you recommend to them to prepare this position tab?
Yeah. So how many shares to provide to the investor, you mean?
Yeah, and how, let's say, what's your experience, if you already, I'm sure you did, and how they can handle this, or how they, or at least some advice.
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess always you should keep as much shares within your company, with your team. But there's some times, and especially right now with the pandemic, that if you find a very strategic investor, you shouldn't hesitate, right, on providing. I wouldn't say whatever they ask, but be so as flexible as possible to the investor. Uh, so, it could go 10% is the minimum, up to, it depends how much you would like to provide, but 10 would be the minimum, I guess, right? Less of that, I don't know if the investor would be motivated, depending, right? Again, depending the market, the valuation, but I would say 10% is the minimum, up to 20, 25. It depends, because this is very strategic that is going to propel you, then it makes sense, right? But at the end, you will start to raise other rounds that will dilute, and the important thing is not to lose your company at the end. It could happen.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
what's your vision? Because as an investor today, what's your investment plan in a few words? Not I might say we don't want to hear about the detail, of course, but do you have any investment activity for this year's, or you already have your target, you already did your portfolio, and you're just taking care of your portfolio, or are you actively looking for other opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. As I was mentioned to you before, the interview, and before the pandemic, I I started joining as an individual investor in a few companies. One of them, it was a SaaS company. And the idea is to continue doing the same this year, not only in blockchain, but also very interesting angle I have seen in renewable energy, in the cannabis medical space, in also in allocating some funds to other funds to invest it for you. But I think right now I'm in the procedure, in the process of helping close the deals for my portfolio companies, and from there until it pass all this pandemic, okay, think and see, okay, what's next. But obviously the ideas would be in the similar spaces like renewable energy, cannabis, allocating some funds. But step by step, take it easy, because right now it's also a good moment to pause and be calm, and just trying to focus on helping these clients to close their projects. And from there, yes, definitely my long-term idea is to build a fund and deploy directly, institutional way, in these companies. Yeah. Right now I'm doing like an individual plus raising, so it's advising and both at the same time. But for sure, yeah.
Okay, Gabriel, thank you very much for your time. We already reached beyond the limit of the 30 minutes, but as usual, it's impossible to reach 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, because it's all the people we are interviewing are really great experience, and it's really insightful and rich in terms of information for the community. So on the behalf of Business Channel Investment, we would like to thank you again, and we are grateful to have you today for these interviews, and we hope you enjoy it. And we hope also to see you soon in our panel discussion or in our club investment. Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate that. See you soon, Gabriel. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugo.